Today on Locked On Canadiens, it's trade deadline day, so hurry up and listen to this episode before it becomes entirely obsolete.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Canadiens. We thank you all for making us your first listen of the day every day. As you know, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. My name is Laura Sab, also known as the Active Stick. Joining me on trade deadline day, as always, is my wonderful co-host, also known as Maybe It's Ian. There's so much to talk about, Ian, today.
There is. We've kind of mentioned this over the last few days, is that recording anything is a bit of a minefield in that who knows. As we were getting ready to record this, we saw Brock Nelson get traded to the Colorado Avalanche. So like the biggest trade chip that was left out on the market is now gone, unless you still count Mikko Rantanen, or if you think that Vancouver is going to finally make a decision to trade Elias Pettersson. But yeah, like everything is just to quote Bob Cole, everything is happening at all times, always.
And first, we're going to break down the Canadiens' overtime loss to the Edmonton Oilers. I almost called them the Edmonton Islanders again. I did it before recording. I'm doing it again now. And then in our second segment, we have a rumor roundup. You know, we might as well do it. Take advantage of the time, because then it's going to have to go away until the playoffs start, basically. And finally, we're going to talk about trade deadline day, what the Habs might do, what other teams might do that might affect us. You know, you brought up Mikko Rantanen. That's a conversation that could be had. And you know, if you're listening to this and it's past whatever trades have happened, don't hold it against us. We're trying our best to kind of, you know, have a measured response, not measured response, have an accurate assessment or analysis of what's going on in the NHL right now. Ian, let's start with the Canadiens game against the Edmonton Oilers. I felt that the Canadiens played okay. Did not necessarily think that they deserved to lose that game, but I think the biggest thing in that is that the point that they got was crucial.
Yeah, it's a big point, especially looking across the league. Boston, Detroit, Columbus, I believe the Islanders as well. All of them lost in regulation. I don't think it was the Islanders. I think the Red Wings were in there too. But yeah, it was a big night for the Canadiens. Obviously could have been bigger if they picked up another point. We'd be talking about them being tied for the final playoff spot. Right now, they just sit 1 point back of the Ottawa Senators for wild card 2, and only 2 points back of the Columbus Blue Jackets for wild card 1, which would be a matchup with whoever wins the Atlantic Division, because Washington, I believe, is at the current moment like about 9 points ahead in that race. So it seems like that might be safe. You're probably playing the Washington Capitals if you finish in that second wild card. But I agree. I think playing against the Edmonton Oilers, you know, as long as the Oilers keep it safe, they have two cheat code players that can do cheat code things, and that's kind of what we saw. You know, Connor McDavid with the overtime winning assist over to Evan Bouchard. I thought throughout that overtime, they did actually a very admirable job of covering McDavid and Draisaitl. They forced some turnovers in the offensive zone, which is always a gamble in 3-on-3, because if you make a mistake, it's now automatically at least a 3-on-2 going back the other way. But they showed me that, you know, they weren't afraid to play those guys. It's funny, you know, in the past we'd look at, you know, the Claude Julien era teams playing 3-on-3 and playing it safe. And I get why you would do that. And in some ways, Montreal does do that by sending Dvorak out to win the draw. But like, they all play a style that's conducive to winning those kinds of hockey games. They got some good looks. I liked their play throughout the game. The two main things, though, outside of the points in the standings, Lane Hudson picks up another assist on an end-to-end rush. He went from behind his own net all the way down and set up Yoel Armia. He's now 16 points away from passing Chris Chelios in the rookie defenseman Montreal Canadiens all-time. We have to come up with a better way of saying that. It's always a mouthful every time. And Cole Caulfield scores again, 31. He's now 9 short of 40. Those are both seeming like it's almost more likely that they happen than not at this point.
I think so. I think in particular Cole Caulfield, right? With Lane Hutson's task is still pretty big, but he's so good. He's so good. Like he's probably going to have another multi-point night soon. And he plays so many minutes. I think like there's an opportunity for it. It feels like he sets everybody on this team up. That's what it feels like, right?
Yeah.
He control of games and he sets everybody on this team up. I was very, very happy to see Cole Caulfield's goal. Like, honestly, if he does hit that milestone, it's going to be such a big celebration here on Locked On Canadiens. We're going to get so excited. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about Mike Matheson. Pulling out the Mike Matheson meter. So for those of you who are listening and not watching, the Mike Matheson Tragic to Magic Mike meter is out. And we were okay with this game tonight. We were relatively pleased, I think.
Yeah, not quite magic. I think he has to score like a peak Mike Matheson goal for it to be a truly magic night. But this is like a 4.5 for me. Like,
yeah,
I think it was our pal Denny on Bluesky, I miss Saku, who mentioned to me that, Mike Matheson seems to play his best games against Connor McDavid, and I don't really know why that is, but I agree with that. It seems like for whatever reason, when you match Mike Matheson up against the best player in the league, it brings out the best in him. He skates with him, he sticks with him, he's not afraid to play him physically. Through regulation time, Connor McDavid didn't have much going. That was and they were hard matching that Carrier Matheson pair against him the entire time. That's back-to-back very good games from Mike Matheson. So we love to see that at this point in the season. We started last episode with it. We have always been Mike Matheson supporters on this program, and we always will be. The guy rules, and he makes one turnover and everybody craps themselves over it. He's fine. He's very, very good at hockey. I wish people saw more of him like this. Obviously, he has some games where, he's the one who's crapping his pants, but that was not the case on Thursday night, now Friday morning, against the Edmonton Oilers.
I did forget to mention that it is mailbag day as well, so we have a lot of mailbag stuff to talk about. One question we got on Instagram is, do you think the Canadiens are going to make a hockey trade, such as Mike Matheson for Bowen Byram? I don't think that that's going to happen. That's just
yeah. I just don't know
unlikely.
why Buffalo would do that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Two teams have to make a trade. It has to make sense for both of them, and unless you're firing like the Canadiens' first-round pick and Mike Matheson for Bo Byram, it's probably not happening. And even then, I don't know why Buffalo would take that. Matheson only has a year left. He's a lot older than Bo Byram. It doesn't really make a ton of sense. So I think everyone's trying their absolute hardest to trade Mike Matheson off of this team almost regularly. And I'm not standing for it unless it's a good trade for the Canadiens. And I don't know that trade exists right now.
No, absolutely not. And again, everyone's trading Mike Matheson out of, stop it. Stop it. Unless you're bringing in the replacement, stop trading him. All right. So there's tons of stuff going on all over the league. Was there anything else we wanted to talk about with respect to that game? I think for me, the biggest thing was the point.
Yeah, just find a way to pick up points in the standings. They all matter a great deal. Seeing how everybody else in the Eastern Conference chase lost, it would have been okay if Montreal didn't come up with any points. Essentially, nobody would have moved any ground. It would have been, just a draw. But, all of those other teams lost in regulation, and Montreal managed to pick up a point. It's not much of an advantage, but they did take advantage in some sense, right? They can hang their hat on that. They have not lost in regulation since before the Four Nations tournament. This was one of the harder opponents, I think the hardest opponent on this road trip, quite honestly. They go into Calgary on Saturday, who's in a very similar place as Montreal, as is Vancouver on Tuesday, as is Seattle on Wednesday. Seattle's maybe more of a seller at this point in the season. They're not close to the playoffs. So this was the toughest one. Montreal was right there. They were a bounce away from getting this from winning this game. So,
yes,
they can hang their hats on that. Great effort against Edmonton, but they need to start getting back to their winning ways again. Remember, we said they were going to lose a game eventually, and what's going to
This
matter is how they recover.
Yeah. And this can be it, and then we can forget about it.
Yep.
Also, like, the Oilers are a good team, right? And you can't forget that the Canadiens dominated them earlier in the season as well, right? So I'm pleased with our overall performance against the Oilers this year. Let's go with
Yeah.
that.
There were 4
Um,
total points on the board against them this year. They picked up 3 of them. What are you going to do?
yes. Coming up next, we have our favorite segment on this show. It is kind of It's going to be obsolete probably, so listen to it quickly. And Rumor Roundup is back in just a moment here on Locked On Canadiens. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I've missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit fanduel.com to join today. That's fanduel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Annas. All right, the hat is back. The hat is back. And you know what that means? That means Rumor Roundup is back. And there's a lot going on because it is essentially, I was going to say it's the eve of the trade deadline, but technically we're recording this at 12:16 a.m. It is trade deadline day. So there's tons of stuff going on. The Islanders just completed a massive trade. Actually, they also traded Oliver Shillington away. So,
They're in permanent. We need to win while Nathan McKinnon is one of the best players on the planet mode.
mm-hmm.
So it's sort of like
Oh
the
no,
trade
the
you saw.
Islanders traded Shillington out already. So they acquired him and traded him.
Huh.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's Lou for you. I don't really know what to expect with that man ever. But we've got one rumor to discuss in this one because they're less so becoming rumors at this point in the season and just leads on trades that are actually happening. This comes to us from Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects. I am told the Jets were in on Carton Soucy, but David Savard remains their main target to add to the blue line. They're not alone in that pursuit, though. Why did the market on David Savard get red hot all of a sudden? It seemed like there was nothing, and now it's a bunch of teams want David Savard.
I'm like, is everyone else gone? Is the question. Because
yeah,
honestly, we talked about this all throughout the season, right? He would be an attractive trade deadline rental because teams that are poised to make the playoffs are always looking for a guy like that. Basically, a shot blocker. He's the kind of guy that has like the character that they like when they're going on a run, and he's going to lie down in front of the puck. He's going to jump in front of the puck. Like, that's what they want.
Yep.
We didn't hear anything in the last couple of weeks. We speculated all year, and in the last couple of weeks, we didn't hear much. We heard that, the Canadiens were going to basically leave it up to him. We speculated that the Canadiens were going to leave it up to him. So this is weird in that, it's the day before the deadline, and now all of a sudden there's multiple teams that are in on him.
Yeah, I think that the Canadiens do want to leave this up to David Savard, but if someone makes a very dumb offer to Kent Hughes, sorry, David Savard, you're going to Winnipeg, you're going elsewhere, you're going to Toronto. Like, as much as that would suck, but that's a guy that they would be after. I think that the Brian Dumoulin trade that happened earlier on Thursday was sort of the canary in the coal mine for like, this might be something that could happen. He got like a 3rd round pick and a prospect, which is crazy for First of all, a guy that I kind of can't believe is still playing. I mean, I guess that's what happens when you go to the West Coast and we're on the East Coast. We just kind of, you might as well be going to a farm upstate, essentially. Like, I just don't know. I don't know that you play anymore. David Savard is like every color commentator that calls games for the Canadiens, regardless of who it is on the English broadcast, they love this player. That's why you need a guy like David Savard. Blah. And it's always just for the stuff that you already talked about. He throws himself in front of the puck. He puts himself into harm's way to make sure his team wins. He also, and this is, I don't think, very controversial, he also can't skate anymore. He cannot move. It takes him 10 minutes to turn around. If you chip the puck in behind David Savard while he is in the neutral zone, congrats on your free puck. You just earned the puck in the corner. And I hate saying
the man is tired. He's tired.
Yes, he's tired. He's got a lot of hard miles. But if a team were to acquire him for a playoff run and use him as a seldomly used third pairing defenseman who also primarily plays on the penalty kill, that's a perfect role for David Savard at this point in his career, right? Like that's the kind of player that in a perfect scenario for the Montreal Canadiens, that's how they're using him. Problem is they need more from him given what the rest of this lineup is. So let's talk about the Canadiens if they decide to move on from David Savard. Are they punting on the season? Like, is that kind of, it can't be. They're a point out of the playoffs. Like,
no.
If they're trading David Savard, doesn't it seem like they have to have some other idea of a right defenseman who will come into this lineup and play meaningful games for the Canadiens down the stretch?
I think so. I can't identify one in the system right now that's going to come up to Montreal
and have the same impact, right?
Yeah.
Like, could you call up David Reinbacher? Maybe. He seems to be playing very well in Laval right now, but that's Laval, and he hasn't played in the National Hockey League yet. Now you're calling him up in a situation.
Laval.
Yeah, and yes, and taking a really important player away from the best team in the American Hockey League, the Laval Rocket. So, like that's another aspect of this. I posted from our show's Bluesky account, tomorrow by 3 p.m. Kent Hughes has made blank number of trades. And I think it's going to be like 2 trades, and they'll both be to help the Laval Rocket, because that just seems to make the most sense. Because like trading David Savard at this point is like, okay, cool, you got a 3rd round pick and a prospect. Who's penalty killing for you now? You know what I mean? Like, Lane Hudson, step right up. You're a penalty killer. Like, that can't be the case.
Yeah.
So like, is there an offer that you could get for David Savard reasonably that you would say, yep, we're going to pull the trigger on that one?
Honestly, I think anything. And here's the thing. I feel like, yes, he's a penalty killer, but he's not as important to this team as, say, a Jake Evans or a Yoel Armia.
Sure.
Right? Because he plays such limited minutes now, and we saw him, right? Like, his brain is much faster than his body is. And it just, like, that's just the way it is. So I think that whatever solution they select, whether it's coming from Laval or whether it's part of that trade where we get somebody, another rental or something like that, he's just a body, essentially. I think it's worth the risk if you're getting any asset for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. I think that's a lot easier said than done, right? Imagine telling Marty, like, we're taking David Savard away from you, and your replacement is Logan Mailloux. It's a tough sell if you're Marty St. Louis, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's the same question or the same statement that I had about trading Jake Evans earlier this week, which was it sends a terrible message to that room, right? Mm-hmm. You've gotten yourselves not even back into the mix. You are in a playoff chase right now. Let's not make any euphemisms about it. They are in a race for a playoff spot. And you're taking away a heart and soul player on this team. It's really tough. It would have to be a fantastic offer, and the Canadiens would have to, in the back of their mind, have another option. They would have to either think that David Reinbacher's ready, we just go David for David, that's it, or Logan Mailloux can come in and play. He can't do the same things that David Savard does. Maybe Reinbacher can, but can he do them now as a
Yeah.
19-year-old? I don't know.
Especially when you're trying to develop a whole other aspect of his game.
Develop a whole other aspect of his game. And I don't know if you guys remember this. He's playing his first games of the season because his knee got blown out. Like, it's a really tough sell. I don't know if there's another option out there for them to grab another right shot defenseman, because they cannot go back to a situation where it's just Alex Carrier back there. So yeehaws, I don't even know if it's really all that exciting to trade David Savard.
No.
It's like 1, and realism, probably a 1 as well. I think that this could happen, but the things that would need to happen in conjunction with it make it very difficult to imagine for the Montreal Canadiens to do at this point.
But wait, I do believe that people are calling Kent Hughes about him.
100%. Yes, that's a good clarification. I think teams that are going after the playoffs and they have hockey man brain, they want this player. No question.
Real quick before we get into our Friday mailbag, what do you think of the rumors that the Boston is shopping Marchand?
It's going to be super weird to see him play for any other team.
And like, especially if it's a team that is like likable, you know,
yeah,
like seeing him like in Colorado or Dallas is going to be really annoying.
Gross. Bet he goes to Winnipeg or something.
Or Vegas.
Oh no,
have space, but he is absolutely a Vegas Golden Knight.
Eichel, Stone, Marchand top line. That's disgusting. That would actually be very good, and it would suck to watch that team win.
There are 3 faces to punch and only hands to punch them with. Only 2 hands to punch them with. That's what would happen if Brad Marchand ended up in Vegas, but he's totally a Vegas player. You know I'm right. All right.
You nailed that one.
Coming up next is our mailbag. We've got some doozies this week. I don't actually know if they're doozies. I just said that. It's trade deadline season. The trade deadline is today. I'm sure there's questions about it.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of them is about we'll stick a couple of them are about the trade deadline. We'll start with Owen on TikTok. By the way, another medium for you guys to reach out to us. We have messages open on TikTok. Send us your questions there. Owen asks, with the deadline fast approaching, do you think the Habs are buyers or sellers? Also, what are your thoughts on the UFAs? I think we've touched on that quite a bit over the last little while. However, the last section of this I find very interesting. I can see the Habs going for a guy like Sam Bennett as a UFA this upcoming offseason. Your thoughts on Team Canada teammate Sam Bennett?
I'm all for it.
Books closed on that one. Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I think
I'm all for it. I feel like he's going to be a bit like there's going to be a lot of teams. It's going to be a bidding war. So
yeah, 1,000%.
I don't want to overpay, but I'm all for it.
I think Sam Bennett is a guy they go after if they strike out on trading for a player. I think they'd like to go that route first to a player that's already locked up long-term or long-ish term, or at least that he's a young player that they have team control over for a while. And the reason I say that is for exactly what you said, going to UFA is a bidding war. Montreal's going to have to throw more money at a guy like Sam Bennett to get him to come and play in Montreal. At least that's what it would feel like right now. But yeah, that's a perfect second line center for this team. He can score. He plays an offensively a great game, a defensively responsible game, and he also is incredibly violent, which is something that this team values. We came back from the Four Nations and we were talking about how Slafkovsky needs to play like Brady Tkachuk, also a very violent hockey player.
Yes.
Sam Bennett would fit in very well on this team.
Yes.
It's almost crazy how good of a fit that is. Maybe we see him. I don't know. It'll be interesting.
I would love that. Thank you for the question, Owen.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of teams will be lined up for that guy's services, though. So they'd have to back up the truck for a guy like that.
For sure.
All right. Jay Schwarzer reaches out, says, "Hi, Laura. Hi, Ian. Just a note on Dvorak. I was born and raised in London, Ontario, and therefore a huge London Knights fan. I remember watching Devo when he centered the line with Marner and Tkachuk, Matthew Tkachuk, that is. He was never much for scoring then as much as he was about setting up scoring chances. For those guys, he was really good at it. Anyway, it's pretty interesting that since the Four Nations break, Devo has been driving play more and creating some scoring chances for his line a lot more than he has all year or in years past. Just in time to maybe boost his trade value. I guess we'll see by 3 p.m. Friday. What are your thoughts on a Dvorak trade at this juncture of the trade season?"
I don't know who was watching, like which scouts were there since, like, because it's true. He has really brought it since the Four Nations, but there were like 60 games before that in which
Yeah.
he didn't, right?
Yeah.
So it has to be like we have to go back and look at the list of like which scouts, which team scouts or GMs were present for the games against, Buffalo. There's like two of them, the games against Ottawa. I do think that if the Canadians can trade him, they will. I feel like they're not married to keeping him,
Yeah.
especially for this run. Like they can replicate what he does
Yeah,
much
especially,
more
and I mean,
easily than a David Savard, ironically.
yeah, and we know the Islanders are open for business, and one of the trades we talked about yesterday was bringing in Jean-Gabriel Pageau, a guy who could replace the faceoffs won by Christian Dvorak and who's under team control for another season after this one. Um, I don't know that replacing him will be as easy as we think. I think that not only the player and what he brings, but just his fit in that locker room. They love Christian Dvorak in that room, right? He's essentially Cole Caulfield's favorite player, right? Which is like wild because they couldn't play any different of a style if they tried. That's just they like the guy. That the guy is a great fit in that room. So I'm cautioned to believe it might be more complicated than it seems, but they're gonna have to, right? Because they're not keeping him. Like I'm not trying to make an argument for keeping Christian Dvorak any longer than he's already under contract. I'm just saying it may be harder to find that fit, find that replacement than it may seem.
Yeah.
All right. Last question here from Joel Woods. Hi, I'm from Canada, have never really gotten into an NHL team before, despite generally keeping up with the league a bit. Watching the Four Nations got me hooked on hockey, and so I decided to pick a team and actually start watching. My girlfriend and I settled on the Canadiens as we love the energy of the fan base, the aesthetic, and the colors, and the young core is so fun. We're moving to Gatineau soon and couldn't bear supporting Brady Tkachuk, so we're excited to become Habs fans. Fantastic. You have two new fans in Laura and I just for saying that. I've watched the last few games and listened to a bunch of this show, thank you, to get caught up on the current state of the team. Wondering if you two have anything you'd recommend for a new fan to learn to really get to know the team or advice on becoming immersed in the fan base. Anything you'd want to say to a new fan, I'd be happy to hear. Thanks for the pod. I've loved listening as a way of getting to know the Canadiens, and I am excited to keep listening as I get more into the team. First of all, thank you for finding us and for tuning in. We really appreciate that. Laura, what's your thoughts on that? Like, if you were to teach a new fan how to become a Canadiens fan, where are you sending them?
I think the first thing they have to do is they have to try to get to a game at the Bell Center, which I know is easier said than done. It is kind of prohibitively expensive, but once in a while you do hit on deals. And there's still a few games, and I think that's the number one thing if you are in the area or Gatineau's not that far away. If you can go to a game at the Bell Center, that's one. Two, I think you have to be careful which kind of coverage you consume. I think Arpon Basu and Marc-Antoine Gaudin are the gold standard for Canadiens coverage. There's a lot out there, right? Like the Montreal Canadiens are the big game in town. It's like being like a Steelers fan in Pittsburgh or a Bills fan in Buffalo. They are big, so everybody's talking about them. So you have to be careful which talking heads you kind of consume as well. Like if you do speak French, listen to the broadcasts in French, particularly the ones in RDS on RDS. They are fantastic. TVA, a little less than that, but I think if you have the opportunity to go to a game, like that is you will feel the craziness from the warm-ups, not even from when they're announcing the starting lineups. And so if that's at all a possibility. Another thing that I would do also is there's a couple of books that I would read. I would read The Game by Ken Dryden. I would read Jean Beliveau's. He wrote like a kind of like his experience of the game, but and then there's one called Lions in Winter,
Yep.
because you have to kind of have an idea of how good they were and how like historically the role they played in the NHL, the role they played in this game, and the role they played in the city. Like the most of us will not remember, like most of us in our age group will not remember a time where the Canadiens were just that much of a juggernaut, right? Like there are people that were lucky enough to be alive in the 70s to see the Canadiens at that time. we're not that, right? So like you would want to read that, you want to watch documentaries about that. Like I really think that having that the knowledge of how great they were and how different it is now, understanding why every time there's like a little bit of a possibility the Canadiens will be good, why the entire fan base goes insane.
Yeah.
Like I think that that's part of it. Ian, what's yours?
Yeah, look, I think you nailed out a lot of things there. I've never seen a game at the Bell Center, so that's a unique perspective between the two of us that you share. Um, I think your point on the media you consume is incredibly well met. Thanks for starting with our show. We really appreciate that. We try to we're here every day for you. Others I could recommend after each game, Game Over. Game Over. Actually, this is my Game Over hat. Game Over Montreal. Kay, Mark, Andrew, you guys know now that I'm repping you guys on the middle of our show. Habscast are friends of ours. Go check them out as well on Spotify. Just stick close to other fans, see what they're going after. The Habs subreddit is great most of the time. There are some times where it gets pretty bad, but right now the vibes around this team are good.
Yeah.
So it's tough to find bad parts of this fan base unless you're actively searching them out.
Yes.
And buy a hat, buy a shirt, wear it out, find fans that way, find friends that way. I live in Connecticut and I wear Canadian stuff around all the time. And you'd be shocked how many times you run into a hockey fan who wants to talk to a Canadiens fan in the middle of New England, right? Like it happens everywhere. Enjoy. Try not to take it too seriously. I know a lot of Canadiens fans like to gatekeep a lot of stuff. That's not us. We have fun. Enjoy this run right now. This is, one of the most fun teams we've gotten to see in a long time. So enjoy this right now. And thanks for choosing us and not the Ottawa Senators. That was a close call. Could have gone either way. So appreciate you being on the right side of history on that one, Joel. Thank you.
I want to recommend a couple more things. So Sebastian High does analysis threads. He also hosts Locked On NHL Prospects on this very network. He is a Habs fan though, and he does analysis threads. David Saint-Louis of Elite Prospects is phenomenal for things like that. He covers obviously the entire league, but he is also originally a Habs fan. Habs Eyes on the Prize, good friends of ours. It's a blog. And then Habs Unfiltered. Blaine's a good friend of the show. Definitely check them out as well. But there's going to be so many out there, and like especially with Canadiens fans, there's so many of us. There's so many blogs. There's so many people covering the team. There's a lot of rumor mongers as well. You just want to be careful what you consume. And if you are a French speaker, there's a lot of French coverage as well. And for me, I always also recommend that people who are, if they're French speakers or if they're trying to get better at French, to consume Habs content in French as well. Just be careful what you believe is essentially.
I mean, nowadays that can go with every piece of type of media that you consume. Yeah. So, that does, the Canadiens fandom does not escape the drudges of reality, unfortunately. So, but enjoy, have fun. Thanks for tuning in to us. We really appreciate it. We hope to be able to inform you as you go along on this journey, but also entertain you. This is supposed to be fun, remember? Like all of this is supposed to be very fun. So enjoy the time that you guys have to watch this team and learn about it.
Yeah. All right.
It's time for trivia. It is time for trivia, and then it's time for the show to become completely irrelevant when Ken Hughes trades for Elias Pettersson. Okay. Yesterday's question, in honor of the fun Jean-Gabriel Pageau trade proposal. How many goals has Jean-Gabriel Pageau actually scored against the Montreal Canadiens in the playoffs and regular season combined? Our answer was 13. I originally thought it was 14. I wrote 14 for some reason, had to go fix it. It's 13.
So I said 13 and you said I was close, so I was actually right.
You were right. That was my bad. I'm going to wear that one. Only 3 goals in 16 playoff games. It felt like more because he scored 3 of them in one game and they did the Pageau chant, and you got to hand it to him. That was actually kind of cool. And then 10 in the regular season for 13 goals. He's actually scored more against the Boston Bruins, 15 goals against Boston. So he's scarier to Bruins fans than to us, and that makes me feel a little bit better. All right, today's question, in honor of Montreal just having played the Edmonton Oilers, it is a follow the career path. Edmonton, New York Islanders, Anaheim, Minnesota, Montreal, Tampa Bay, Carolina. Do that one more time. Edmonton, New York Islanders, Anaheim, Minnesota, Montreal, Tampa Bay, Carolina. You know the answer. Put it in the comments. Email it to us. TikTok, comment, anything. Let us find your answer so we can shout you out on the show. Did I mention Good Sport had the answer to the last one? I should do that since I
Yes.
say that I always call them out. So Good Sport, congrats on the last one. And if you have the answer to that one, please let us know. We'll shout you out.
Yes, please. And the answer to our latest one is definitely it's on brand for this show. Is how I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
In the meantime, you can get in touch with us all over social media. We're on TikTok as Locked On Canadiens. We're on Instagram as Locked On Canadiens. Our Gmail is Locked On Canadiens. We're on Bluesky as Locked On Canadiens. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. Please subscribe. Please tell your friends. We're so close to getting to 4,000 on YouTube. So please tell people to subscribe. Or if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that button. In the meantime, you will find us all over social media as well. My co-host is at Maybe It's Ian. I am at The Active Stick. Our email, very important, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. We love hearing from you, whether it's game experiences, questions, observations. And thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you all on Monday.